Hello, and a huge welcome to tonight's webinar, Unpacking Year 12 HMS Assessment. And I think this is very timely for many schools who are watching this live. So a huge thank you for joining live. But for those people who are joining, watching the recording back, these are timely conversations because we are like beginning of term 3 in 2025, and we're about to teach Year 12 HMS for the very first time together. But some of the conversations that we've been having offline is really crucial to setting our kids up for success for HMS next term in Year 12. And obviously, our teaching and learning and assessment goes hand in hand with each other. So a huge welcome to tonight. You're in the right place, obviously, if you are a HMS teacher, but I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which I work. This is our beautiful Putty Beach, surrounded by Booty National Park. We do have quite a few Aboriginal sightings in our local area. We are very blessed. I'm very blessed. I say that a lot. I'm a Western Sydney girl, moved from Darug country up here to Darkin Young land, and I'm surrounded by the beautiful beach at Kilcare, the Brisbane water down that way, and then surrounded by Booty National Park. So wherever you are coming from, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land on which we work, live, and play, and pay my respects to the future generation in which we teach. So this webinar is for you who, if you want to uncover these major changes to assessment, how the ACE manual is affecting our assessment right now, like as we teach, as we talk, kind of geared more towards Year 12 because it's time is of the essence. We have to have our scope and sequences. We have to have our assessment schedules ready and raring to go very soon. I know that there's lots of different things happening. So you're in the right place. If you're ready to navigate the changes, which many of you guys are, you're ready to uncover the key changes. And I think more importantly, how that affects the impact, how this is going to roll out next term, you know, what we're actually going to assess the kids. We're ready to kind of have a conversation, I think, about what's in and what's out in terms of, you know, assessment, how it's going to affect the kids, us, what we mark, what we decide not to assess, blah, blah, blah. And we're also ready to have an actual plan because I know that we can kind of come away with things like tonight and go, oh, that was great. Thanks, Kel, for that. Thanks for that conversation. But having a plan of attack is really important. So these are my 4 promises to you tonight. And obviously, this is a small conversation as part of a bigger conversation for you guys at school. I want you to come armed as you know, a well-knowledged HMS teacher when you have conversations at school. I know many of you guys are the head teacher, PDHP coordinator, leader of learning, blah, blah, blah. But having this as ammo behind you is also really important. So we're going to look at the ACE manual. So if you teach other stage 6 courses, you can see how it affects that. We're going to confidently, hopefully, that's a promise, to tackle the main changes, to kind of go, let's calm our farm. It's okay. The implications are there. What are we going to do about it? Look at the ins and outs for us as HMS teachers, and then obviously have a bit of a plan of attack as we uncover these changes. So if you stay to the end and are super keen to have access to this mapping document, we've developed this for you guys as HMS teachers. I've said this a few times if you've heard me say it, but it took a long chunk of my school holidays to do this, really kind of looking at what's in Year 11, what's in Year 12, where the crossover is in terms of content, knowledge, skills, but also just making it really simplified for you guys. When we start to teach stage 6 or Year 11 next year, I can kind of go, okay, that's where I need to push, or you can kind of go, okay, right now we're in term 3, week 3, what can I actually do to make those transitions really easy for the kids? So I'll get you guys at the end to pop your emails in so we can send that to you guys as well. And my big promise, as always, if you haven't met me before, is to empower you as a busy teacher. Life is hectic, life is busy. That's my plan, always to help empower you as a busy teacher, because our challenges are, you know, our resources, our time, our energy, you know, And what we have at our disposal often is quite limited at school, but also in life. It's not all about teaching. If you haven't met me before, this is like a fast track version of my career as an educator. I started teaching in 2004, very long time ago. I'm kind of feeling my age this year. I don't know why. I think because I've done lots of professional learning in the back end of the year, uh, worked with lots of schools and teachers, and I think I don't know why. My body's feeling okay, but I think just meeting more people, I'm like, okay, Kel, you're getting there, like 20 years. But I've been very lucky to be surrounded by stage 6 my whole career, in fact. Many of you know me as a CAFS kind of expert, but I didn't just teach CAFS. That's what I kind of left the classroom and started, but I've had lots of experience across the years in stage 6, part of lots of curriculum reforms and presenter revision sessions for like 18 years of my career for PDHP and CAFS and all those sort of things. But I left the classroom in 2020. It wasn't the job, and I've said this before, but I do miss the classroom a lot. But I feel like I get to make an even bigger impact because I get to work with you guys and make your life a little bit easier. Now into the heavy lifting, and look, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek photo. I do like weights in my later career. I love netball, OzTag, touch. I ran for a long time, probably about 10 years, but kind of found the gym on the Central Coast. We don't have very many street lights, so it's really hard to do running in the morning. So anyway, my analogy is like we do the heavy lifting for you guys, so you don't have to do all the work. And look, I've worked with lots of your schools. Many of you guys are in the HMS membership, so a huge thank you for your support. But also, I've presented at your schools before for lots of different things. Okay, let's have a look at these ACE manual changes, and I'm going to be really honest. It's caused a bit of a stir. I've had lots of emails from HMS members, CAFS members, PDHPE teachers across New South Wales about these changes. And I'm going to be really transparent with you, and I'm very honest. Those of you who've worked with me before, you'll know this, that not all of the changes have been made transparent, I think, and I'm not NESA. I don't have a partnership with NESA. I support everything that they do. But I think, there are confusions, and that's why you guys are here. So that's what I'm hoping to alleviate tonight. And we kind of have already rolled out the CI. It's here. Like many of us have assessed it. And I know many of you were angry, annoyed, frustrated, excited, and really confused about these changes. I'm angry about how it was rolled out, but I'm also excited about the changes. Polar opposites, of course. I feel very disappointed that there wasn't more transparency around it, although I still think I wouldn't change what you have done. And I don't have that answer about why they made the changes. I can give you some reasons behind, like some kind of, anecdotal kind of thing, but they're not going to make a statement about it. So we're going to have a quick look. We're kind of going to roll out these 4 steps as we navigate the changes. So we're going to have a look at the ACE manual changes and how that affects every stage 6 course across New South Wales, uncover the key changes affecting us. We're going to be a little bit, selfish in that respect before we kind of have to, fill out scope and sequences, assessment schedules, etc. Okay, so you'll have access to all these slides tomorrow, so don't stress. So this rule came to effect in October 2024. So that was way before we even started assessing the CI. And I'm not sure what happened between last year and now. There was, and I'll show in a second, there was an announcement made across department schools in a newsletter, and then like a free webinar. Some of you guys might have been part of that. I know that went around because I'm not on the email system, but I get, people tell me what's happening. But back in October, there was a very small record of change kind of that went around to schools in the busyness, I think, of that part of the year. HSC, marking, everything that's happening, schools, trying to get things together. I think it's been lost in the system. So this new rule, the 2.1.2, came into effect last year. So it was amended to allow schools flexibility in determining the number, type, and weightings of assessment in each HSC course from 2025. So let me show you where it is. And again, you can show these links to your team. So remember, this is all moved to the new New South Wales curriculum website, the NESA website. You'll know that the NESA website has the Waratah, obviously, and then NESA, the Blues, all that sort of stuff. But if you go to here, and then you go 2.1.2 is where we're looking, formal assessment programs and tasks. This was just something about feedback, so don't stress about that. But look, it's a massive document. If you want to read it in its entirety, you have to kind of download all of it, or you can look at bits. They've kind of made it a bit easier to kind of have it here. I'm a little bit old school. I like to see the document printed as well. I'm not sure about you, but look, this is kind of, it's online as well, which is great. Okay, so we kind of want to go down to these two. So 2.1. We'll scroll down, and it's not really like 0.2. It's like, I'm just scanning here. So this point here, schools may follow the assessment program provided by NESA, suggestion, but have the authority to determine the number, type, and weighting of assessment tasks. So that's the same. You might like to read all these other bits, like in terms of marking, recording, providing feedback, it has to happen timely, all that sort of jazz. You can read that for yourself. And then if you kind of just like close that off, you'll then see the one for HSC. So 2.1.2 is the actual one that they've said is changed, but year 11 was as well. You'll see it here. Schools may follow the assessment program provided by NESA, but have the authority to determine the number, type, and weighting of assessment tasks. So that's the official stance. And so if you are at a school and you're teaching multiple stage 6 courses, CAFS, HMS, food tech, maths, some of you science, that's what it is, dance, that's what it is for all courses, despite what has been published in the past. And they've kind of, look, in their wisdom, they've made the announcement, but they haven't changed all the internal documentation yet for all courses. So especially for CAFS, it hasn't been changed. It still says that the IRP has to be part of your internal assessment program, but it doesn't have to be. This kind of stemmed from, I think, realizing the flexibility that happened during COVID, where it was principal's discretion, weighting, type, how many, like all that kind of thing. I don't know why they reverted back to that. I think just allowing schools flexibility in them assessing what they think is, based on the context of their school, the needs of their students, that type of thing. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and talk political stuff, talk, why not. This is a decision that has been made with little consultation. For us, mere teachers, I'm sure there was conversations at the top end, but that's what happens when policies are changed. Not all of us have a say in that. So hopefully that kind of shows you what the changes are. Any quick questions? Don't ask me why, because I don't really know. In terms of the nitty gritty, I've just kind of highlighted those chunks that I just showed you guys on the screen. This is the one for year 11. And I know at some point they went away from calling it the preliminary course, but they haven't changed that on a lot of the documentation. So it still says prelim. It should say year 11, but everyone uses them interchangeably. So I don't know. I like consistency of naming anyway. So obviously this is it's up to us. It's up to schools to assess what they want, how they want, when they want. The one thing that hasn't changed is having multiple tasks on the same day. That rule where you can't have part A's in the morning and then part B's later on through the day. That's 2 tasks. It has to be, at the point, right then, okay, you're going to hand in your diary, you're going to hand in your case study, and then you might have your in-class task. You can't double dip. It has to be that one task. at that one time of submission. Again, if you want clarity around that, chuck it in the chat or just unmute if you want to get clarification around that. That is actually in the ACE manual as well, in the rules. I won't go back to that, but you can look at that link and show your team at school. Okay, that's for prelim. HSE, same thing. Follow the assessment program provided by NESA, but have the authority determine the number, type, and weighting of assessment tasks. So in my kind of thinking, I always go, well, why did we change it in the first place? We had a lot of flexibility. We then kind of, reduced from 5 tasks in year 12 down to 4, and then 4 in year 11 down to 3. We've kind of done a backflip. However, the message from NESA is still to maintain the integrity of the syllabus in which we're teaching, the integrity of HMS, the integrity of CAFs, that initial kind of, rollout of the syllabuses, it should still kind of go with that. But there's a bit more flexibility now with what we do at school. So let's have a look at the changes in terms of HMS. It's really important that we go to the website. We're not going to do it every week, but try to kind of check in, like, are there changes that I'm not aware of yet? If you haven't signed up to the NESA news, please do so. I will say out loud to you that there wasn't a NESA news notification about this specific change, like in terms of, the CI, like all that kind of stuff. I will show you the change in a second, but it was published on the website. It's really important to know that. And obviously, it's always important to check the accuracy of our syllabus because it does change from time to time. In terms of HMS, those examples that we have, they're just like, in addition to, they're not mandatory to teach. We have to teach the includings. So we have to teach the includings. If you need to write that down, please do so. We have to teach the including, but we don't have to teach the examples. And that's the same with our K to 6 PDHP syllabus and our 7 to 10 PDHP syllabus. So just something for you guys to keep an eye on. So in terms of those changes, you've probably visited this about 1,000 times so far in the last 18 months. I know I have. That's why you can probably see it up here tabbed for me. So these changes, if you go to this button here and then concertina's down and shows you the change. So on the 8th of May, a notification was made that the Health and Movement Science Collaborative Investigation content point was amended. Now, I'll kind of give you what I said, and then I had to seek clarification in the holidays, towards the end of last term. Content point was amended for clarity and consistency with the assessment certification, ACE, manual changes found in Year 11 Collaborative Investigation Outcome HM 1105 must be addressed. It did say assessed. So in my wisdom, Kel thought that this outcome, if you know it, it's about collaboration. So I thought that the task didn't have to assess collaboration. And then I still was getting lots of questions. I'm like, okay, if I missed something. So I contacted NESA and I said, I just want to get clarification around this particular notice. And they said, well, it actually doesn't have to be assessed at all. The collaborative investigation doesn't have to be assessed because of the ACE manual changes in 2.1.2, or was 0.1 really. But they didn't kind of say that out loud. They just have to give very black and white responses. It's up to us to kind of interpret those. So that clarification was made around the CI, that it doesn't have to be assessed. It can be addressed. So that obviously then caused a bit of an uproar when I made that announcement, shared on a few social media platforms, because a lot of us had already assessed it. And the big message is from NESA, and this is the same as the IRP for CAFs. Well, this is my interpretation of the IRP part, but it maintains the integrity of the syllabus. The CI, there's 20 hours allocated to the CI. I think we should be still assessing it. Whether we assess all the parts, Whether we assess it in a different way to maybe what we did this year, that's up for us to have a discussion, towards, mid next term, when we have to have our assessment schedules and scope and sequences ready for year 11. Tonight's more about year 12 because that's timely, but it definitely does raise a lot of questions around what we're going to assess and how. So yeah, like obviously there's going to be, a lot of implications for us as teachers of the subject. Ash has got a question, but we have to indicate the hours of programming towards the CI to meet the syllabus. 100%, that hasn't changed. The CI component hasn't changed. It is still 20 hours of course time, and that needs to be reflected in our scope and sequence, but it doesn't need to be reflected in our assessment schedule. We no longer have to assess it. It doesn't have to be assessed. It has to be addressed, that particular outcome. But again, maintaining the integrity of the syllabus, we should be actually assessing it. And look, to be honest, like we're spending 20 hours of it, we should make an assessment task on that. Whether it's, exam type questions, about the CI, then that's up to us. We need to use our professional judgment around that. Doing a disservice for kids of just having exam type questions throughout the whole of year 11 and 12. You've taught the kids before. Not all of them are like that. They're not all going to be able to, show what they know with just exam questions. We need to have that breadth of assessment. Yeah, exactly right. And that's my personal feeling as well, Ash, because there's so much of our course time made up of this, the integrity behind the syllabus, we should be assessing it anyway. So that's my next thing. So that's the CI. Okay, so I showed you guys that. These are the changes, 60-40. We still have to have that knowledge and skills, which is great. For year 12, we still have to have that. We can do what we want. And look, there's no discussion around the depth studies. And for all transparency, and I'm very transparent, I'm still yet to receive an email from NESA about the depth studies, but I know from this statement that we don't have to assess the depth studies. I don't know if any of you guys have had a discussion. We've been playing phone tag backwards and forwards. I just wanted an email to say, like, no, you don't, but I had an email about CAF's IRP, not about the depth studies. So look, there's frustrations from me. I can only understand like how you guys feel as well, because, the authorities there are decisions made, but there's no real clarification. There hasn't been an announcement about the depth studies. We had to assess the depth studies. Now we don't. There's flexibility around that. So look, we can only deal what we have to deal with, in front of us. This is the change. We now need to have a discussion about what it's going to look like for us on the ground in HMS. This is our next conversation to discuss. So our depth studies are in year 11 and year 12. If you haven't looked at what is involved yet, as I was saying at the HMS Summit, I think none of you guys were there last week, actually. Let me know. Most of your names, like I'm pretty sure none of you guys were there, but we were having this discussion, like, if it's such a big chunk of what we're doing, we should be assessing it anyway. That's kind of my gut feeling as well. CI, 20 hours, depth studies, 30 hours. There should be some sort of depth study that we're assessing. And I would actually, in fact, assess a depth study in year 11 to help the kids with those skills. I would much rather you guys do bite-sized depth studies. That's kind of been the feeling, like the gut feeling from a lot of teachers, especially teachers in our HMS membership, that they've felt that when they've transitioned to the depth studies, the kids have not become a bit rowdy, but they're like, oh, depth study again, like, do we really have to do this? And they're kind of like switched off. They've thought it's like a CI. So my kind of message to everyone, and I've said this a lot, at the summit to HMS members, is to really embed it part of your practice. In our HMS membership, you'll see, like, I've provided suggestions to how you can kind of embed it at the point of instruction, rather than it being this big mammoth thing that just takes over. You can kind of do like little bite-sized depth studies all the way through. despite the fact that the support documents on the NESA website are what, like 20 pages long. That's my kind of, gut feeling about it. That's what, you've said that you're doing rather than the big ones, because the kids tune out. They only have like limited attention span. So do I. Okay, so depth studies. Do we want clarification around the depth studies and hours and stuff like that? Some of you are nodding. So let's go there very quickly. Not all of these, teaching and support documents have been updated, which is a bit frustrating. Like, we're trying to, implement it now, and not everything's been updated. Some of it has, not all of it. Okay, so these documents right at the bottom are really good. So like provides teaching advice around the CI, teaching advice around the depth studies. And inside our HMS membership, we've got lots of resources around depth studies and scaffolds and templates and all that kind of jazz. But this is a really good one pager. Can you guys see my screen like that? Yeah, sweet. So down here, so 20 hours of the CI, and it could be a combo, it could be a case study, it could be an article that you guys look at, it could be going to a local university, going to a local gym, having an expert come in, whatever you guys want it to be. So minimum of 2 depth studies, 20 hours of class time. It has to be like recorded. And then for Year 12, it's a total of 30 hours of class time. You would notice, if you know the syllabus well, I think, yeah, here. This used to say assessing a depth study. I'm pretty sure that this used to say a depth study must be formally assessed, but you'll say the wording has now been changed to may be formally assessed. So it had to be assessed. The CI and the depth study had to be assessed. CI Year 11, depth study Year 12, but they've just changed that wording now. Flexibility, obviously the integrity of the syllabus, and having 30 hours of depth studies, you're going to want to assess it in some capacity. I think the depth study really provides the kids a really good not starting point, but a really good foundation for including in one sporting example, that type of thing, like really good for focus area 2, really good for just providing some evidence and examples in their answers, some really kind of good depth. Obviously, that's what the depth study is. It provides that, further embedding of knowledge, understanding, and skills. Something that I was also not aware of, and I kind of didn't confuse members, but just wanted to have clarity around it. If there's like a content point, you can actually make that part of your depth study. I thought it was like not exactly those content points, but it can be like that can be you then just going deeper and further with something from the syllabus. Again, there was mixed messages in some of the documentation. Okay, so that's depth studies, 20 hours in Year 11, 20 hours in Year 12. Again, so I've just popped in here just to remind us, obviously schools have the authority to determine whatever you want now. We can use, the samples provided, but one depth study in Year 12 doesn't have to be assessed. Again, in the spirit, maintaining the integrity of the syllabus, because there's 30 hours allocated, I personally would be assessing a depth study, the CI, the IRP. That's just me. I am, I don't have a class, but you guys do. You have multiple classes. Karina, question for me or for us, for the team.
One of the questions that I'm interested in with CAFs, my understanding, I haven't taught it, but is that when you do the research methodology and then you do the IRP, that then becomes accessible in questions in the actual HSC exam.
Yep.
So my question now is that a depth study does not have to be formally assessed. We're still preparing our students for that final exam. And I understand the importance with giving these kids, the skills from the depth study. But the frustrating part there is that if some people might just choose to focus more on the exam style techniques, because that's still worth 50%, Kel. So
Yeah.
I know I'm sort of planning as everyone is. And now that it says maybe formally assessed, we will still assess a depth study in year 12, but it makes me think that, having more focus on exam style technique because there will not be any questions, my understanding on even to do with the research part of things, which is different to CAFs. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to put that out there to see what
Yeah.
other
No.
people think.
Yeah, thank you for raising that. And that was my first thing I raised as well. And obviously, you guys know that I've had a heavy background in CAPS, like SOM, like there's a supervisor of marker, presenter for a number of years, like, and for a number of organizations. And I've had close dealings with NESA. When I was the ACTPA president, I provided feedback to NESA and said, this is very similar to CAPS. Like the CI is very similar to the IRP, despite a lot of other organizations saying, no, it's not. It is. And I said, okay, well, that's my first thing. My second thing is, are the kids going to be required to learn that, like to have to learn that research and then be assessed on it? And the part that really annoys me is that they don't. And I'm like, well, why are we spending, like, I get it. Lifelong learning, research skills, 21st century learning, contemporary approach. I think it's just frustrating there will be no question in the HSC about collaboration or reliability or validity or what's the chirp, informed consent. None of that is accessible. But I think the depth studies provides us with a really good foundation to go deeper, which will help with the 12 markers if you guys haven't looked at the exam sample yet. Um, and we can have a look at that in a second. I think it's going to provide us with a lot of depth for going further in our content rather than like that surface level understanding of stuff. Yeah, but obviously we can have a conversation tonight about, what it's going to look like. What are some ideas that we have together to actually assess it? Question, have you had the hand up?
Kristen, I
Oh,
have.
Kristen, sorry.
But so really the two modules are assessed in the HSC. But I think in the year 12 module, in the HSC modules, in the syllabus, it doesn't have, like in the year 11, it has got research methodology as part of the syllabus.
Yeah.
The HSC doesn't, and therefore that methodology is not going to be assessed. That's your understanding.
That's my understanding from NESA, the conversation I had on the phone last year about it. Because, presenting stuff for you guys as HMS members, like we had all those year 11 resources that I popped in
Yes.
that gave you guys access to help with the CI.
Yeah.
And knowing that, okay, because there are like research points, it could be in the year 11 exam, like
Sure. Yep.
exam, and I put maybe one question about reliability. But certainly for year 12, no, like it's not in the syllabus, no.
Yeah. So it seems like the intention in the end, because I think even with our head teacher meetings that we have, we've been a little miffed maybe with some of the intentions in the end. But year 11, there's a real intention on research methodology, understandably, and collaboration with a view to giving them skills for future study and work. But year 12 there, because one of our big complaints in the past was always PDH was so content heavy. And it seems they've listened to that and they're saying really 80% of what you're going to teach of your year, we're going to assess. So that's kind of my take. Is that how people are feeling about it?
Yeah, and look, I think you guys would know teaching on the ground for the majority of you. Not everyone has taught year 11, but from our members from the HMS Summit, we had 65 teachers there. They're like, there is so much content in year 11. How the hell were we ever going to finish properly and do this, do what we needed to do?
Yes.
You'll feel very surprised, probably like a little bit relieved that there's not as much content in year 12. Because we have already resourced out all of our HMS membership resources, all of our year 12 booklets. Google Slides are coming, they'll be ready in the next couple of weeks. Please feel a sense of relief that there's heaps less content in year 12.
It seems much more reasonable.
Yeah.
Year 12 looks much more reasonable. Year 11 has been
year 11's
insane.
ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And look, Kristen, you've had access to the membership. We are going to certainly cut back on some of that stuff. And really, I think as a collective group, go, well, what do we really need to teach? Like, where are those connections? That document that I said at the beginning will help us with that. But certainly next term at some point, I'd love to have, an open forum and kind of go, okay, here are our resources. What can we cut back? What can we streamline? Do we need to know all the joints? Do we need to know flexion, dorsiflexion? Flexion? Probably not. Like, we want to know, the kids kind of, it helps them understand stuff, but is it really going to be, is it really in the syllabus? Probably not. Anyway, look, we'll get there. We'll get there at some point next term, and we're planning for year 11 next year.
Sorry, the textbooks are interesting now, because a lot of the textbooks, the outcomes, they have included the examples as their text, the stuff in there out of the syllabus.
Yeah.
So Jacaranda. So I don't know what they're going to do, because they've taken that syllabus with the examples quite literally, and that's the sort of stuff that they've focused on.
Interesting.
I don't know what they're going to do about that, because obviously a lot of us will be going, well, we don't have to teach those examples. We'll use a whole bunch of other examples.
Yeah. And look, when we resource things, we have to and we don't know, like, people put resources out there and you trust people. Were all the people on the JAC or on the Atomi or on whoever, or on my staff, on the syllabus committee? I wasn't. I know that. Dan was. And he's obviously given me lots of information. I've, spoken to Nessa at length, but there are some things that I didn't, that I don't know the ins and outs of it. I think we just need to continue to ask those conversations of Nessa as well. They're the authority, but they're also not here to provide us with resources and provide us with professional learning, which makes it really frustrating for you guys and for me. Like, as a professional learning provider, we have a huge number of schools in our membership. Like, we're resourcing for this, but yeah, look, it's tricky. It's really tricky. Okay, Mel, you've asked a question, by the way. Why wouldn't school just focus on the extended questions, case study response to assess, rather than the study? And exactly right. Like, that's a conversation that we can have in the next 10 minutes. We've got 10 minutes before we have to kind of bring our CAFS colleagues on. But yeah, what is that going to look like on the ground? We need to have a really good think. Like, what do we actually want to assess the kids? Do we want to be getting them to hand in this big, massive portfolio? Maybe not. Like, we have to do parts of it, but the kids can present it however they want. Would you guys like to have like a discussion, or how would you like me to facilitate a conversation around, like, how many tasks, weightings, half yearly, that type of thing? Right, Kristen's got a question again.
Yeah, sorry, to answer
I'm sorry.
Mel, to answer Mel's question, like, from my perspective, for Mel's question, I think the depth study, the ability to do depth studies in little chunks in year 12 will allow the kids to explore a little deeper the syllabus content. Therefore, when they go into their exams, they're going to have better examples, deepen sort of knowledge. Therefore, I reckon their responses will be better responses.
Yeah.
So, I think in year 12, we'll still maybe do a 10-hour depth study that we assess, and the other bits we do as chunks, something along those lines. But it should just give them better depth of knowledge and better responses, hopefully.
Yeah. And look, I'll quickly show you kind of like what Kristen is talking about. So in our HMS membership, come on, Google Drive, go. Hello, Google Drive. What are you doing, mate? Wake up. There we go. I'll show you guys like what we've kind of done and what Kristen's kind of talking about. So this is the members are in the Google Drive. We'll go to year 12 so you can kind of see. I don't know, let's go focus area 1 first. So when you join the membership, you'll get access to this very comprehensive unit of work. It took us a little while to resource this. So there's a syllabus. It's all mapped to the syllabus with outcomes and all that kind of jazz. Because there is so much, like, we've kind of indicated to you guys, like, this is how long I would spend time on. So this might be like one lesson. I might spend my time on these 3 kind of points-ish. So we've kind of mapped it out: introduction and hook the kids in, ignite that conversation, direct teaching, knowledge and understanding, application of content. These are all like clickable links, blah, 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 reflection, wrap up, homework, exam prep questions, all that kind of stuff. And where we've kind of thought you could do a depth study is down here. So what's this point? So looking at health reports, inequities. So again, try and make those really good connections across. I've said that you could form the basis of a depth study where students examine the effectiveness of a strategy that has been implemented to improve the health status of Australians. So I've done that in a lot of the units of work. You'll see that highlighted in yellow. Like it's all through there. It's been embedded. For this, it's looking at, Australia's ranking for OECD. Of course, we need to have some sort of, deeper knowledge of stuff. Why is this the case? We might go in a bit deeper for that. So that's how we've kind of done it for the HMS membership. So you actually have those ideas right there and then to kind of like, do it as you go. Or if there is quite a few significant connections, you can kind of go a bit deeper. And like Kristen said, there are examples in the HSE. Like that's where we kind of get to show that breadth of knowledge and depth of knowledge rather than that surface level understanding that a lot of our kids do have. Okay. Any other questions or comments around Year 12? Of course, it kind of raises like questions about the number of tasks, like how many are we going to have? Are we going to have 5 tasks now? Are we going to just stay at 4? Are we going to kind of introduce our half yearly again? And I know there are a number of schools who do like a practice trial. Potentially, could that actually be an accessible item, maybe the beginning of term 2? Maybe, I don't know, have an assessment task term 4, maybe have a depth study term 1, maybe have like a half yearly in term 2, and then have the trial term 3. I don't know, I don't know what it's going to look like. It's up to us, I think, really to have a really good conversation about what suits your kids, where the gaps are. I don't know, based on our context, school might say, no, we're actually going to introduce half yearlies again. Would anyone like to have a quick chat about things that you've had a discussion at school about? Of course, a lot of you guys hadn't seen the ACE manual changes. Any conversations that you guys are having at school level, head teacher level, coordinator level, executive level, leadership levels?
Yeah, I'll tell you what we've been doing.
Yeah.
I've been doing it long enough now. We're in a cycle, so we're back to, we're discussing again the half yearlies, putting them back in. Yeah. When we talk about why we took them out to start with, a lot of people weren't there at that point, so now they're there going, "Oh, half yearlies are a great idea. We need them." So anyway, so yeah, we PDH, we have not done a half yearly. Probably for year 12, we'll do 2 module tests, depth study and the trial.
Yeah.
Would be ours. Year 11, 4 again. So, sorry, we're doing 3 at the moment. Year 11, 2 modules and the collab.
Yeah.
We'll probably still keep doing the collab, but we might discuss a 4th in there somewhere. But that whole idea of dropping one of the assessments a while back was about burnout with kids and stress with kids, and I think that's valid when they're doing 6 subjects. So that's what we're doing. 3 in year 11. CAFs do 4. CAFs do a half yearly.
Yep.
But HMS, no. And then, like I say, 4. I think CAFs are doing 5 in year 12 and HMS will do 4.
Yeah.
But other parts of the school are doing half yearlies. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your insight. And look, everyone's going to have a different spin on it. The burnout of the kids, the lack of preparation for HSE skills, You know, you and I know that if you do a practice trial, the kids aren't really gonna like sit it properly. I've marked practice trials, you know, since I left in 2020. Even in the school holidays just gone, I had a big Catholic school of PDHP and CAFs. We had a lot of non-attempts. I'm like, because it's not accessible. Kids don't give a shit. And it's disappointing. But, you know, do we look at introducing that? I don't know. You know, these are the conversations that you guys will have to have at school. And I I don't want to be a fly on the wall at school when you're having those conversations, because you're going to have mixed feelings. Mel has given us her insight. Yes. Just had to double check. No talk about half-yearly exam at the moment. Trial, yeah, agreed. Kids don't do their best, except the high flyers. But they do burn out as well. They put so much pressure on themselves. You know, you guys know what it's like. Elise is at, I forgot this, Elise is at compressed curriculum. So only having 3 tasks is appealing, 100%. Otherwise, you guys are under the pump massively. And yeah, look, you know, everyone's only just kind of looking at this. So look, it sparks that conversation, I think. And look, certainly in the HMS membership, over the next couple of weeks, like I'll, you know, provide some ideas for people, you know, and some scope and sequences, knowing that, you know, we've kind of had all that ready, but now we kind of have this come to light. What is that going to look like? Well, we need to have that conversation, I think, because it has implications. And look, you know, that's a CI, year 11, like is the same kind of thing. I know that we're not there yet, you know, for the next round. But, you know, if you're a head teacher, you probably have to start to have this conversation and this thought. Do you do 3? Do you do 4? Do you introduce a half yearly as well? Assess the depth study and the CI plus 1, you know, plus the end of course exam. Do you have 2 exams? I don't know. Like, I don't think there's any one size fits all, to be really honest. And look, you know, you guys might like to have that conversation at school, and if you're presenting this to your staff, and I don't mind if you do present this, as long as you tell them the facts of what I've kind of shared with you, and you can kind of watch the recording, share the recording with your team. I honestly don't mind if you do, but this might be something that you could do at a faculty meeting coming up. I know that, you know, we kind of have those very regularly, but yeah, it's a lot of things to think about, I think, without, you know, we have 5 tasks. Who does the marking? Like, it's not the kids, it's us. So look, there are considerations, I think, for you guys to think about. You know, before I left, we had 5 year 11 CAFs, 5 year 11 CAFs, 5 year 11 PDHPE, 5 year 12 CAFs, 5 year 12 PDHPE. So like, that was going to be a lot of marking for people if we introduced an extra task. So look, it's tricky. You know, obviously these are, again, are there for you guys to think about, like how many, when, you know, you're going to have to be really strategic about that. So that's there for you guys. And instead of a SWOT analysis, I came across this a little while ago, but it's a noise analysis. You can look up what it really means. They're very similar to SWOT. But what are the opportunities we have for the kids in kind of going this approach? And obviously the exceptions, they're the kind of the considerations that you guys need to think about as a school, as a faculty, and equity across courses as well. I will say that out loud. You know, why should CAFs have 5 tasks and HMS only have 4? That's again a conversation that you guys need to have at school level. And I'm not here to kind of, you know, have arguments with people. Look, a quick plug for the HMS membership. This was us last week, not HMS membership, but HMS Summit. It was really good. Earmark it for next year. It was a really great 2 days. And look, our promise is to give you back your holidays and your weekends. We have members here, so if you want to ask any questions about it, a lot of teachers and schools are up for renewal. Obviously, we have done the heavy lifting, like I said, in the background, and we'll continue to change and tweak things. And that's a great thing about what we get to offer, is that we base it on what you need and want, and we get to make those very quick changes. I'm not the department. I'm not the independent system. I'm not the Catholic system. I can create whatever our members want, and that's you guys. So, and I can work very fast to make those things and those changes happen. at the point in which they change, which they're now. So if you want more details, it's the Keys to the Castle. As I've been saying, that's the link. My website, many of you guys have, purchased booklets and stuff before, thelearnnet.com/HMS. If you have any questions, let us know. Look, we probably don't have time to have a quick wrap up, but any very quick, any light bulb moments, any things that you're thinking of right now as we wrap up together about assessment in HMS? Any ponderings?
You cleared up some good stuff today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Always my pleasure to do that. Thank you for your contribution as well, Kristen. Anyone else want to ask anything before you guys head off? Please ask any questions that you do have. Flick us an email. Even if you're not in the membership, look, that's, it's my pleasure to help you guys. But look, as always, thank you for what you do at the other end in schools with your beautiful kids. It's been massive, and I'm at the other end resourcing it all, but I feel for you guys. And look, if we can do anything to support you, you know where we are. But thank you for coming tonight, and look, let's continue to have this conversation, and yeah, take care, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks heaps, guys. Have a good night.